Imagine you're like the CEO of a Fortune 500 company. You probably think you are totally in charge.
Oh, absolutely. You'd think you're the one pulling all the strings.
Right. You set the strategy, you make the rules, you decide exactly who gets hired and fired. But today, we are diving into a worldview that says, your corporate hierarchy, the sandwich you literally digest for lunch, and even the orbit of the Milky Way are all governed by the exact same inescapable set of rules.
It's a huge claim.
It really is. Welcome to today's deep dive. We are exploring a translated philosophical and spiritual text today that tackles this really massive universal concept. The core premise is that absolutely everything in existence is locked into a strict, completely unchangeable order.
And this order applies to literally everything.
Everything. And our mission today is to unpack the author's argument that this overarching structure spanning from basic human society all the way to the cosmos itself is absolute proof of a greatest creator.
Yeah, and it is a sweeping, comprehensive worldview. It's great to be here with you to explore it. Our goal today is to really examine the architecture of this perspective.
Just to map it out.
Exactly. We are going to map out the logic used to connect these dots, and we're doing this completely objectively. I mean, we aren't here to endorse any specific religious or philosophical claims as absolute truth.
Right, of course.
Rather, we just want to understand the mechanics of this argument, like how it moves from the incredibly mundane things we do every day to the highest metaphysical concepts, all to try and prove that nothing is random.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah.
Because we don't start with the cosmos or like the spirit realm right away.
Yeah.
Before tackling anything mystical, the foundation of this worldview is built on something you encounter every single day, which is human societal structures.
Yeah, the stuff we are all super familiar with.
Exactly. The premise is that human society is inherently organized by a rigid order, specifically in politics and business. The first major example the text uses is that a country can only have one president. That is the order.
Because if you have two...
Right. If there were two presidents, the argument is that the country would inevitably split into two. And it scales that to business, too. Like if 10 companies merge into one massive corporation, you're going to end up with one CEO, not 10.
One clear leader at the top.
But wait, I have to push back on this right out of the gate. Aren't these just human-made rules? Like, couldn't a trendy new tech startup just decide to have co-CEOs? We've actually seen massive companies try this. It seems like, we are the ones making up these specific hierarchies, not the universe.
Well, yeah, that is exactly the counter-argument most people would make. We like to think we are the architects of our own social systems. But this worldview draws a very, very sharp distinction between the laws humans write on paper and the fundamental laws of reality.
Okay, so the paperwork doesn't matter.
Right, yes. Constitutions and corporate bylaws are drafted by humans. But any human-made order must conform to human nature and the basic norms of society.
So if a company drafts a charter with co-CEOs, are they essentially violating a law of physics? Are they just doomed to fail? Or is the idea that one of those CEOs is secretly the alpha, even if the paperwork says otherwise?
It's actually both. What's fascinating here is how this framework insists that this hierarchy is essentially hardwired into reality itself. Even if a group of extremely bright and intelligent people try to establish a functioning order with two equal leaders, the mechanics of human nature will just eventually break it down.
Like they'll just start arguing.
Exactly. Friction will occur, decisions will stall. Eventually, one person takes the dominant role, or the entity splits entirely. The rule of one group, one leader, is framed as a divine mandate that simply cannot be violated by human cleverness.
Wow.
It is not a cultural preference. Think of it like trying to write computer code using a syntax. The software language simply doesn't support. The system will just crash.
Oh, that software syntax analogy actually makes a lot of sense. You can type whatever you want into the console, but if it violates the underlying code, it won't execute.
Yeah, the computer just says no.
Right. And this concept doesn't just stop at presidents and CEOs. There's a whole list of societal hierarchies in the text that we just accept as natural orders. Subordinates obeying superiors, employees obeying bosses, police restraining criminals. Even the fact that a business requires a license to operate.
Yeah, that one is interesting.
It is. These are all grouped together as manifestations of this underlying, inescapable code.
Precisely. And by starting with these incredibly common societal structures, the goal is to get you, the reader, to nod along. You recognize these patterns in your own life.
Yeah, we've all been in a meeting without an agenda or a leader. It's awful.
Right, you experience the friction when there is no clear leader or when laws are completely ignored. Once you accept that this structural rule is a constant in human society, you are ready to expand the scope.
And it expands really fast,
Yeah.
because if this one leader rule was just a human construct, it wouldn't exist outside our specific social bubble, right?
Right.
But when we look at the natural world, we see the exact same architecture.
Oh, totally.
Whether it is a group of ants, a hive of bees, a herd of goats, or a pack of wolves, there can only be one head. The author points out that the biological world perfectly mirrors the corporate merger.
It is building a bridge from the social to the biological. The rules governing a corporate boardroom are the exact same rules governing a wolf pack. And then we delve even deeper into biological inevitabilities. Think about the human life cycle.
Oh, right, the stages of life.
Fetus, baby, adolescent, young adult, middle-aged, menopause, old age, death. That is an unbreakable order. You cannot skip a step.
You can't just be born a middle-aged guy.
Exactly. You cannot run the sequence backward either. It is a biological law you cannot violate no matter how much money or power you have.
That is the great equalizer, isn't it? Like, we see billionaires today spending millions of dollars on biohacking, trying to reverse age or live forever. But at the end of the day, there are basic bodily functions that humble all of us.
Yep, biology always wins.
Being hungry requires eating, and eating requires excretion. That is an order that simply cannot be controlled. You might be the single most powerful tech CEO on the planet, but you still have to eat, and your body still has to process that food. You are subject to the order.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, we can see how this philosophy moves from biology straight into astrophysics to prove the universality of this order.
It just zooms all the way out.
It really does, because the mechanics don't stop at the human body. Look at the cosmos. The moon revolves around the Earth. The Earth revolves around the sun while, simultaneously rotating on its own axis.
Just clockwork.
And the entire solar system follows the movement of the Milky Way. Gravity itself is basically framed as just the physical manifestation of this overarching order. It is an inescapable system of larger bodies directing smaller bodies.
It is wild to think about it all connected like that the requirement for a business license, a bee serving its queen, the digestion of a sandwich, and the orbit of a planet are all just different octaves of the exact same song.
That's a great way to put it.
The sheer scale of it is mesmerizing. Everything from the micro to the macro is absolutely locked in.
And this brings us to a crucial pivot point in the text. Because if the physical universe, the biological world, and societal structures are all locked into an unchangeable order, logic dictates that individual human destinies must be equally locked in.
Right. I mean, if you don't have control over the solar system and you don't even have control over your own digestion, why would you assume you have total control over your career path or your personal life?
It's a tough pill to swallow for a lot of people.
It really is. But here's where it gets really interesting. Because the text introduces this concept of the program of life. That is life in all capital letters.
Right, the program of life.
This is defined as a personal trajectory that cannot be changed by subjective will. It sounds a lot like destiny, but framed almost like an algorithmic prerequisite.
It is a starkly deterministic view. If you are sitting there listening to this on your commute, you might be feeling a spike of existential dread right now.
Oh, for sure.
Because this completely upends the modern, deeply Western ideal of the self-made person. We are taught that sheer willpower, hustle, and determination can conquer any obstacle. This framework argues the exact opposite.
It sounds like life is less like an open-world video game like Minecraft, where you chop the wood, build your own house, and dictate your own destiny. It's much more like riding a roller coaster.
A roller coaster.
Yeah. You can scream, you can raise your hands, you can close your eyes, you can even complain to the person sitting next to you, but the track is already a little out. You're going to the exact same destination, regardless of how you feel about it.
That is a perfect analogy. The roller coaster track is the program of life. And to illustrate this, there is a very relatable, somewhat heartbreaking observation made by the author here. Every parent hopes all their children will become successful and bring honor to the family.
Yeah.
Every parent desires that outcome. But that subjective hope changes nothing about the track. In reality, children will just live according to the program of their own predetermined life trajectory.
Regardless of the parents.
Exactly. That is why some children succeed brilliantly and others simply do not, despite the exact same parenting or environment. It was already coded into the system.
The pushback against the idea of free will is just brutal here. It is pointed out that if personal will could actually determine one's life trajectory, Pigs and dogs would become humans, and everyone could become an emperor.
Everyone wants to be the emperor.
I mean, think about it. Who wouldn't will themselves to be the emperor if they could? If willpower was the only variable, we would all be billionaires living on tropical islands. The fact that we aren't all emperors is basically proof that our will does not dictate our reality.
And the ultimate proof of this lack of control, the ultimate enforcement mechanism of the order, is death.
The final stop on the roller coaster.
Exactly. This framework uses death to unpack the absolute limits of human power and wealth. The vast majority of people, especially those who are incredibly wealthy and influential, desperately do not want to die. They have the resources to fight it, they have the will to live, but that subjective desire changes absolutely nothing.
The machine does not care about your bank account.
It really doesn't.
So mechanically speaking, why is death necessary in this framework? If everything is so perfectly ordered, why the need for destruction?
Because it isn't viewed as destruction at all, or even as a punishment. It is a mechanical necessity for the order of existence to continue functioning. Think of it like a cosmic turnover valve.
Okay.
The argument is that if the people before you do not die, there will be no way forward for those who come after. If the valve jams, the system backs up. You get stagnation, overpopulation, a complete breakdown of the cosmic machine.
Right. There'd be no room for anyone new.
Exactly. Therefore, everyone is equal in the face of death, and this is the order. Death is the mechanism that enforces the program of life, ensuring no human can permanently disrupt the flow.
Okay, so up to this point, we have built this massive, inescapable framework. Society, nature, the cosmos, and your own personal destiny. Your roller coaster track are all strictly ordered. You can't change it. You can't will your way out of it. And eventually you die to make room for the next person to ride the coaster.
That's the setup, yeah.
This brings us to the final crucial question. If we are locked in this system, what are the spiritual consequences of it? And ultimately, who is responsible for designing it?
Right, because if everything is predetermined, you naturally ask, well, why does anything I do matter?
Exactly. To really cement this feeling of determinism before moving to those spiritual consequences, there is a very vivid idiom used in the text. Dragons give birth to dragons, phoenixes give birth to phoenixes, and the offspring of mice dig holes.
It doesn't get more predetermined than that.
No, it really doesn't. You are what you are born to be. The mouse can look up at the sky and dream of flying like a phoenix all at once, but its biology, its program, dictates that it is going to dig a hole.
Yeah.
So what does this all mean? If we are all just mice digging holes or planets spinning in orbit, what does our reaction to this system even matter?
This raises an important question about the intersection of determinism and spiritual consequence. Even though your trajectory is programmed, there's a strict metaphysical consequence based on your internal orientation toward this system.
Wait, really? So it's about how you feel about it?
Yes, it is about acceptance versus resistance. The argument is that those who respect the greatest creator and live in harmony with this established order are rewarded. Upon death, they enter a higher level of life space.
Oh, wow. So it's not about changing your actions to change the world. It's about aligning your internal state with the reality of the roller coaster you are already on.
Exactly. And conversely, there's a penalty for rebellion. Those who despise the greatest creator, who constantly fight against the track, who try to live against the established order through pure ego, will inevitably descend to the lower level of life space.
So you just go down.
Yeah, it is a binary spiritual outcome based entirely on whether you submit to and revere the maker of the order you are trapped within. And importantly, this isn't necessarily framed as a moral judgment. Like, it's not a thunderbolt coming down to smite you for being bad.
It's just gravity.
Exactly. It is framed as just another mechanical rule of the universe. It is spiritual gravity. If you align with the order, you float up. If you fight the order, you sink down. This consequence, too, is simply the order.
It is the final gear in the cosmic machine. Submit and ascend, or rebel and descend. Which brings us to the grand finale of this whole argument, the ultimate rhetorical flourish.
Here we go.
Because if everything from the digestion of a sandwich to the spiritual gravity of the afterlife has a perfectly designed order, someone had to design it. The author poses the question, was it our human ancestors? Was it an emperor from a certain dynasty? Or, and I absolutely love this inclusion, was it the dinosaurs?
It is such a striking rhetorical choice, isn't it?
It really is. You are exploring this incredibly heavy philosophical terrain about the rotation of the Milky Way, the inevitability of death, and the spiritual destinations of our souls, and suddenly you are asked if a T-Rex designed the universe.
It sounds absurd on its face, but that absurdity is a very calculated mechanism.
How so?
By throwing in the dinosaurs alongside human ancestors and powerful emperors, the point being made is about finite limitations. An emperor, no matter how powerful, is just a human subject to death. Ancestors are long gone and were subject to the same biological laws we are.
And dinosaurs are literally extinct.
Right, they were just animals following their own biological programming. None of these earthly, finite entities could possibly author a system that governs the stars and the soul. They are all inside the machine. They couldn't have built it.
The absurdity makes the final answer feel inevitable.
Definitely not them. Apart from the greatest creator, who else has this ability?
It is a masterful piece of persuasive architecture. We started this deep dive by looking at corporate CEOs and the fact that a country only has one president. We unpacked the friction of co-CEOs
Right.
and software syntax.
We covered a lot of ground.
We really did. We moved into hungry stomachs, biohackers, and the biological life cycle. We zoomed out to orbiting planets in the Milky Way,
Yeah.
and then we zoomed all the way inward to your personal roller coaster track, the inevitability of death, and your spiritual destination in these higher or lower life spaces.
All connected.
And the whole journey is designed to point a giant neon arrow at one conclusion, which is that there is an unshakable, divinely mandated order, and only a greatest creator could have built it.
It is a perspective that really challenges you to evaluate your own assumptions about agency. For anyone engaging with this framework, it forces you to think deeply about how much control you truly have over your own life versus the external systemic forces that shape your path.
It kind of takes the pressure off.
It does.
Yeah.
It asks you to find peace and even spiritual elevation, not in conquering your reality, but in accepting your place within a vast, beautifully complex, and unchangeable structure.
Absolutely. It totally flips the script on how we view success, failure, and even mortality. It takes the pressure off, in a strange way, while raising the spiritual stakes. But as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over, building on the logic we just unpacked.
Okay, let's hear it.
It was argued that death is a mathematically necessary order, the cosmic turnover valve. We have to die so that the next generation has a way forward. There has to be room on the stage. But if our life trajectories are entirely pre-programmed, and, as the idiom says, the offspring of mice will always just dig holes, it begs a huge question.
What's that?
Does this mandated way forward actually offer any new possibilities for humanity? Or are we all just endlessly replacing each other to repeat the exact same loop of order forever?